Let's begin with the foundation, your self-image. Most people think their external reality dictates their outcomes, their job title, their bank balance, their education, the environment they grew up in. But here's the truth. Your life bends to the image you hold of yourself in your own mind, not occasionally asterisk, consistently asterisk. The thoughts you entertain about who you are and what you're capable of become the architecture of your entire reality. This isn't philosophy for philosophy's sake. This is lived psychology. If deep down you see yourself as someone who's always behind, who never quite gets the break, who tries hard, but doesn't win, your subconscious will work overtime to make that true. You'll sabotage opportunities, minimize your voice, and rationalize why others are more deserving. The mind is profoundly obedient. It will serve the identity you've built, even if that identity is quietly destroying your potential. Think about this. You've never made a decision in your life that contradicted who you believed yourself to be. That's not a coincidence. That's cognitive alignment. Your actions will always rise or fall to meet the level of your self-concept. And it runs deeper than confidence. Confidence is surface level. Self-image is the blueprint underneath. You might speak well, perform well, even succeed in spurts. But if your internal self-image doesn't match that success, it won't stick. You'll find a way to return to your mental set point. That's why so many people can change their circumstances temporarily, but eventually drift back into familiar patterns, financially, emotionally, professionally. They never updated the internal settings. They treated the symptoms and ignored the system. Now here's where it gets powerful. Your self-image isn't fixed. It was built, and anything built can be rebuilt. Most of it was constructed when you were too young to consent, formed from other people's opinions, from early experiences, from what you were told was possible for someone like you. But you're not 7 years old anymore. You have the ability and the responsibility to become the architect of your own identity. That means consciously choosing who you believe yourself to be. It means refusing to inherit concepts that were handed down in fear, in scarcity, in limitation. It means interrupting that mental dialogue that tells you to be realistic, when what it really means is stay small. Realism is often just another word for self-doubt dressed in logic. So how do you start shifting that self-image? Begin with observation. Listen closely to how you speak to yourself when no one else is around. Pay attention to what you assume about your limits. Then begin to question those assumptions, not with blind affirmation, but with evidence. Start stacking proof of your capability. Every time you show up, follow through, or stretch yourself, register it. Let it inform a new internal narrative. You don't need to fake belief. You need to build it, thought by thought, action by action, identity layer by identity layer. Your future isn't hiding from you. It's waiting on a version of you who can finally believe you deserve it. You don't rise by force. You rise by alignment. If self-image is the foundation, then the stories you tell yourself, your mental script, are the dialogue that runs the show. Every single person lives with an internal narrator, and that narrator is constantly writing and rewriting the story of who you are, what you're capable of, and how the world responds to you. The problem is, most of us never question the script. We assume that just because a story feels familiar, it must be true. But familiarity is not truth. It's repetition, and repetition builds identity. From a psychological standpoint, your brain is designed to conserve energy. It leans on pre-written patterns, mental shortcuts. If you've told yourself for years that you're bad at relationships, that you're unlucky, that you're not the kind of person who finishes what they start, then your brain files that away as fact. Not because it is fact, but because it's been said often enough to be efficient, and the mind favors efficiency over accuracy. Now here's the catch. These scripts don't just sit quietly in the background. They direct your attention, filter your perception, and influence your behavior. If your mental script says you're not a leader, you'll ignore opportunities to lead. You'll downplay your ideas. You'll stay silent in rooms where you should speak. And then you'll use the absence of evidence as proof that you were right all along. That's the loop, self-fulfilling prophecy, not because the world confirmed it, but because your story shaped how you showed up in the world. This is where philosophy meets practicality. You have to become the editor-in-chief of your inner dialogue. You have to catch the story before it cements itself as your identity, because every time you say, "That's just the way I am," what you're really doing is defending a limitation. You're anchoring to a past version of yourself that might no longer be relevant. Start listening, truly listening, to the way you talk to yourself when you fail, when you're challenged, when things go quiet. That's where the real story lives. Not in your social media bios, not in your resume, but in the internal script that plays when you're alone with your thoughts, and then begin rewriting, not with delusion, not with toxic positivity, but with precision. Change "I'm not good at this" to "I'm still learning how to get better." Change "I never catch a break" to "I'm building resilience through this." You're not denying the difficulty, you're redirecting the meaning. And meaning is everything. The stories we tell ourselves don't just describe our world. They create it. If you want to change the results you see, start by changing the language you use to define your place in it. Identity is not fixed, it's fluid. And every time you tell a better story, you give yourself permission to become a better character in it. So ask yourself, are you telling the story of your limitations or the story of your becoming? One keeps you stuck, the other sets you free. So far we've explored self-image and internal narrative. Now we need to talk about focus, and not in the surface level, try harder sense. Focus isn't just about attention. It's about allocation. It's about how you use the limited cognitive real estate of your mind. Think of focus as your mind's currency. You spend it every moment of every day, whether you realize it or not. The question is, what are you buying with it? Psychologically, focus acts as a magnifying glass. Whatever you place it on becomes more intense, more defined, more emotionally charged. That's not metaphor, that's neuroscience. Your brain filters over 11 million bits of information per second. You consciously process maybe 40. The filter that decides what gets in, that's driven by focus, what you've told your mind to prioritize through repetition, emotion, and belief. If you're constantly scanning for what's wrong, what's missing, who's ahead of you, what could go wrong, you will find it. Not because it's more real, but because it's more rehearsed. Your brain is simply responding to the mental instructions you've given it, and if you've trained your mind to focus on lack, guess what expands? Lack, not because the world changed, but because your lens narrowed. But focus isn't just passive, it's directive. It's a tool you can wield. You can teach your mind what to look for. When you begin focusing on growth, on gratitude, on discipline, on progress instead of perfection, you start building a neural environment that supports those things, not just emotionally, but structurally. Focus carves pathways in the brain, and those pathways determine how easily you access certain thoughts, reactions, and behaviors in the future. This is why intention matters. Unintentional focus is just reactivity. It's emotional whiplash, bouncing from stimulus to stimulus, never fully anchored. But intentional focus is sovereignty. It's the decision to put your mental spotlight on what you want more of, not what you fear. And it requires discipline, because the world is engineered to steal your focus. Notifications, headlines, algorithms, every one of them is a bid for your attention. And if you don't choose what you're focusing on, someone else will. Here's the key: focus is not about doing more, it's about doing less asterisk, but with more clarity, more presence, more ownership. Most people don't suffer from a lack of potential, they suffer from divided attention, from trying to hold 10 thoughts at once and giving full presence to none of them. That's not productivity, it's mental erosion. You want to elevate your life, start by narrowing your lens. Focus on what you can control. Focus on who you're becoming. Focus on building, not comparing. Every day ask yourself, where am I putting my energy? Because energy flows where attention goes, and results follow energy asterisk, always asterisk. The mind is like light. Unfocused, it illuminates everything and changes nothing. Focused, it becomes a laser, powerful enough to cut through steel. Be the one who chooses the target, because what you focus on is what you amplify, and what you amplify is what becomes your life. Now, let's talk about something most people try to avoid: discomfort. Discomfort has become the enemy in modern life. We've been conditioned to believe that pain means something is wrong, that struggle is a sign of failure, that ease is the ultimate benchmark for whether something is meant for us. But let's challenge that, because philosophically and psychologically, discomfort is not the problem, it's the portal. Every transformation you've ever had, mental, emotional, physical, started with discomfort. Discomfort is the signal that something is stretching beyond its current boundaries. It's the mind confronting a limitation. It's the body adapting to a challenge. It's the soul waking up to the fact that the old way of living, thinking, or being is no longer sustainable. Yet most people recoil the moment that signal shows up. The second it gets difficult, they retreat. They interpret resistance as a red light, when in reality it's often a green one. The presence of resistance doesn't mean stop, it means you've touched the edge of growth. And what you do at that edge determines everything. From a neurological perspective, discomfort is a byproduct of neural rewiring. When you're learning something new, breaking a habit, or facing fear, your brain literally has to create new synaptic pathways. That's metabolically expensive, it takes effort, and your mind by default wants to conserve energy, not spend it, so it throws up internal resistance, doubt, procrastination, overwhelm. But these aren't signs to stop. They're signs that your brain is being asked to evolve. This is where mindset comes in. Growth is not something that happens to you. It's something you have to allow through consistent discomfort. You have to shift your relationship with it. Instead of asking, "How do I avoid pain?" start asking, "What is this pain trying to teach me?" Because when discomfort becomes your teacher, progress becomes inevitable. There's a term in psychology called distress tolerance, your ability to endure emotional and cognitive discomfort without escaping or shutting down. The higher your tolerance, the more complex problems you can solve, the more resilient you become, and the more you can hold success when it arrives, because success isn't soft. It demands expansion. And expansion, by its very nature, is uncomfortable. Here's the paradox. The people who grow the most aren't necessarily the ones with the best strategies. They're the ones who can sit with discomfort without needing it to end right away. They learn to metabolize the struggle. They stop making it mean something is wrong with them. And because they stay in the process, they end up building capacities others never touch. If you want to evolve, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. You have to stop using ease as your compass and start using alignment. Some of the most aligned actions you'll take will feel hard, uncertain, vulnerable. That doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're becoming someone new. You don't build a stronger self by avoiding pressure. You build it by letting pressure shape you with purpose. Growth doesn't happen when it's convenient. It happens when you're willing to meet your limits and walk through them anyway. So the next time discomfort shows up, don't retreat, lean in, because on the other side of resistance isn't just a result. It's a rebirth. Let's talk about something people often confuse with ambition: standards. There's a crucial distinction between goals and standards, and understanding it changes everything. Goals are what you hope will happen. Standards are what you refuse to live beneath. Most people set goals with excitement, but live with standards born from habit. They'll aim high on paper, but tolerate low-quality thinking, behavior, and outcomes in practice. And that gap between what they say they want and what they allow is where self-sabotage lives. Here's the truth: you don't get what you want, you get what you accept. You get what you allow, what you walk past, what you rationalize. That's not pessimism, it's precision. Life mirrors the boundaries you enforce, not the wishes you entertain, and when your standards are vague, so are your results. Psychologically, standards form the baseline of your self-concept in action. They reveal what you truly believe you're worth, not what you tell yourself when you're motivated, but what you prove through repetition. If your standard is that your voice matters, then you'll speak up, even when it's uncomfortable. If your standard is excellence, you won't submit half-finished work and make excuses for it. If your standard is honesty, you won't lie just to make others like you. It's not about perfection. It's about what you're willing to uphold, especially when no one's watching. Raising your standards isn't about becoming rigid or self-critical. It's about refining the quality of your choices. It's about creating a threshold beneath which your behavior no longer aligns with who you're becoming. Not from ego, but from integrity. High standards don't restrict you. They liberate you from mediocrity. They elevate your environment. They magnetize people, opportunities, and outcomes that match your level of commitment. And here's something to consider. Most people set goals based on excitement, but they don't adjust their standards to match the person capable of sustaining that goal. So they might say they want to build a business, but their standard is still comfort. They might want deep relationships, but their standard is still emotional avoidance. They might want peak health, but their standard is still inconsistency. The result: a life that's full of unmet potential, not because they lacked talent, but because they never raised the floor beneath them. There's also a philosophical edge here. Raising your standards is an act of self-respect. It's a declaration that you refuse to outsource your value to circumstance, or to wait for permission to take yourself seriously. And yes, when you raise your standards, you will lose some things. Comfort, convenience, maybe even people who are only compatible with the older version of you. But what you gain is far more powerful: alignment, clarity, self-trust. If you've ever felt like your life isn't matching what you know is possible for you, ask yourself this: what have I been tolerating? What have I been normalizing that quietly insults my potential? And then start making small, quiet decisions that reflect a higher bar. No fanfare, just quiet excellence, because raising your standards isn't loud, it's sacred. It's a shift in identity that says, I no longer live at the level of preference, I live at the level of principle. And once that shift happens, everything else recalibrates. There's one final truth we need to confront. Without aligned action, mind, said is just a theory. All the inner work, all the reflection, all the clarity. It only becomes transformation when you move. Intellect without execution is potential left on the shelf, and this is where many people get stuck. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait until the fear disappears, until they feel ready, until every variable is known and every risk neutralized. But here's the reality. Action is not the asterisk result asterisk of confidence. It's the asterisk source asterisk of it. You build belief by doing. You build momentum not by thinking harder, but by taking the next intelligent step, even when your hands are shaking. From a psychological standpoint, action rewires identity. The brain learns not just from information, but from experience. When you do something you once doubted, your mind updates its map of what's possible. And every time you follow through in the presence of uncertainty, you teach your nervous system a new baseline. You become someone who acts, not because the conditions are easy, but because the purpose is greater than the discomfort. But let's go deeper, because this isn't about hustle culture. This isn't about grinding mindlessly or staying busy for the sake of appearances. Aligned action is different. It comes from clarity, not compulsion. It's not scattered effort, it's intentional movement. It asks, what's the most honest next step that aligns with the person I'm becoming? Not what's the flashiest, not what will impress people. What will move you 1 inch closer to integrity? And it's important to realize that alignment doesn't always feel exciting. Sometimes it feels quiet. Sometimes it's a boundary, or a difficult conversation, or a commitment to consistency when no one's clapping for you. But this is where discipline becomes your ally, because when your actions are no longer dictated by mood or emotion, but by vision and values, you become incredibly powerful, not loud, not explosive, but grounded, reliable, magnetic. There's a philosophical discipline here too, what the Stoics would call arid asterisk, the expression of your highest self through virtuous action, not theoretical excellence. Lived excellence, the kind you demonstrate not in public moments, but in private ones, when you choose integrity over convenience, when you persist without applause, when you honor the future version of yourself in the way you show up now asterisk. Because in the end, everything we've talked about, your self-image, your internal script, your focus, your tolerance for discomfort, your standards, it all crystallizes in your behavior. Your life is not defined by what you believe deep down. It's defined by what you consistently do asterisk. So if you want to master your mindset, don't just think differently, move differently, decide differently, act from the version of you who already knows they're worthy. And let that version lead, even when it feels unfamiliar. Because clarity without action is paralysis in disguise, and the life you truly deserve will only reveal itself when you stop waiting for the perfect moment, and asterisk become asterisk it.